How do F1 drivers set up an F1 car? The car isn't balanced. I've got too much oversteer. The car is too soft. These plus many other complaints are typically what you'll hear over the course of a Grand Prix weekend when a car isn't set up completely to a driver's liking. But what do balance issues mean? What do drivers, engineers, and the whole team change over a weekend to make the car's setup as perfect as possible? Well, it's a good job you clicked on this video. We've touched on this before in our slipstream versus dirty air video, but the main thing you'll hear from drivers over the team radio is a lack of grip or suffering from understeer and oversteer. In a nutshell, oversteer is when the front of the car grips more than the rear, and understeer is when the front of the car refuses to turn in. Want to know more? Go check out the video. I'll wait. Moving swiftly on, a perfect setup for one driver will most definitely not be a perfect setup for another. For example, Lewis Hamilton prefers a car that understeers because he feels he can gain back the time lost with less grip on the front but plenty of rear stability. Whereas Kimi Raikkonen prefers to get the nose in, make corrections mid-corner whilst letting the rear end slide, which helps to rotate the car around a corner. But what can be changed on an F1 car? With the help of a secret ex-F1 engineer, we've helped to compile this for you. Front and rear wings. If the driver wants to have a car with responsive turn-in, they increase the wing angle on the front wing. Keeping the angle of the rear wing in proportion with the front is also important, otherwise the car becomes unstable and unpredictable. But remember that the more front and rear wing angle, the more drag it produces and the slower it'll go on a straight. Suspension. The setup of the car can also be changed using different suspension geometries, which are altered with the help of springs and dampers. A soft suspension means that your car can absorb bumps more effectively, but if too much force is applied during acceleration or braking, it can cause the car to become unstable. A stiff suspension will help to reduce the instability under braking and acceleration, but at the cost of greater tyre wear and being less forgiving over bumps. Inertia dampers are particularly important when it comes to setups these days. But what is an inertia damper? Don't worry, I didn't know either before asking our mystery ex-F1 engineer. You're a lifesaver. Essentially, it's a damper with a mass inside it, which moves up and down a really coarse thread. It's used to soften the car when it takes impact on bumps, and is changed depending on the bumpiness and whether there are a lot of high-speed corners. There is one damper on the front and one on the rear. However, the front is adjusted much more because the rear one is located inside the gearbox and is quite difficult to access without taking everything apart. The benefits don't stop there either. Inertia dampers also help with tyre wear. More suspension. The driver can also adjust the front and rear anti-roll bars, which affect the amount of body roll while turning into corners. Stiff means that the tyres will hurt through longer corners, whereas soft will make the car less responsive but have much better traction and stability through prolonged corners. Think of China and Catalonia as examples. Even more suspension. The ride height of an F1 car does not stay the same over the course of a lap because as the speed increases and the aerodynamics are in full flow, the suspension is compressed. Causing the car to bottom out because of running the car too low results in a large loss of downforce. However, the drivers do not mind this happening on the straights as it has much less of an effect, plus it makes some sweet sparks. On the flip side, increasing the ride height will increase drag and reduce straight line speed. It's very much a balancing act and is an extremely sensitive setup change. If you bring the ride height down by 1mm at the front, you change the entire aerodynamic flow under the car as well as over the top. From there, you will need to readjust the wing angle based on the ride height. When will suspension ever end? You can also change the camber and toe of the car. Camber is the angle at which the wheel sits vertically. Adjusting this will change the tyre contact patch with the track surface. The balancing act continues as adding excessive amounts of camber can have a negative effect on tyre wear. I also mentioned the toe of the car. Well, this defines whether the leading edge of the tyre points towards, toe in, or away, toe out, from the opposing tyre on the same axle. You have to decide whether you want a consistently stable car or one that can occasionally be unstable but with greater turn-in response. It's not as easy as pressing the loud pedal and away you go, you know. Differential. This controls the way power is transmitted to the rear wheels, which is seen to be either unlocked or locked, although they aren't absolute terms. An unlocked differential allows the driven wheels to rotate at different speeds, which can be beneficial when looking for a setup with less tyre wear and a more predictable car when it comes to snap oversteer. A locked differential, however, forces both wheels to rotate at the same speed, which helps with outright traction out of corners. The thing you stop the car with. Pretty simple this one. The more brake pressure you put towards the front, the more likely you are to lock up and understeer. The more you put towards the rear, the more likely you are to lock the rear brakes and suffer from oversteer. Simple. Tyre pressures. Drivers can adjust the tyre pressures to a certain degree as long as it's within the parameters set by Pirelli. Having less pressurised tyres means a larger contact patch with the racetrack, which improves traction but reduces responsiveness through quicker corners. Pump those bad boys up and you will see a minor increase in straight line speed, better responsiveness, but they'll get hotter quicker, which will impact on the lifespan of the tyres. Weight distribution. This is all about where the ballast is located within the chassis. With the overall weight limit going up this year, it isn't as much of a factor, but the location of the ballast can still affect the overall vehicle balance. Moving the ballast towards the rear reduces understeer and vice versa. I think that gives you more than a rough idea as to the sorts of bits and bobs that can be adjusted on an F1 car. What else would you like to see on F101? Let us know in the comment section below.